Thank you, Professor Cusack, President Weiss, trustees, graduates, faculty, and families. I am proud to be a Lesley graduate, and I will treasure memories of this day. I have been immersed in adaptive design for 36 years, but I began grieving about the loss of human potential when I was 12. It was 1968, a year of terrible social unrest and political heartache, and it was also the year my younger sister couldn't identify the numbers 1 to 10 on flashcards or recite the alphabet without countless mistakes. Mary Ann started her educational journey with an intolerant first-grade teacher, and even though Mary was stupendously smart and curious, she was always in trouble, and she dreaded school ever after. Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, and Helen Keller all died in 1968. So in 6th grade, I learned about bigotry, loss, and persistence. Although I don't recall when I first saw the iconic film The Miracle Worker, which was released in 1962, I have always had vivid images of their battles in my mind. The idea that Helen Keller's achievements depended on Anne Sullivan's determination to prove that Helen was in there stunned me into wondering what happens to children when we don't see humanity and possibility beyond a disability. By the time I was a freshman at Lesley in 1974, I was keenly interested in working with infants and young children. I didn't believe disability meant couldn't, so when I started student teaching, I had a terrible time focusing on modest goals and cautious objectives. I was in turmoil when anyone suggested that I try to be more realistic or align my expectations to the goals on a child's education plan. I started working with infants at the Perkins School for the Blind in January of 1981, and in July of that year, my aunt had a spinal cord injury that paralyzed her fingers and thumbs. In an instant, she lost the ability to extend her fingers, make fists, or grip anything. She couldn't open a drawer, brush her teeth, cook a meal, or hold a fork without adaptations. Over the next 2 years, through my aunt's struggles and specific requests, my uncle's inventiveness and mastery with tools and materials, and my insistence on fixing things, we created dozens of adaptive devices and discovered again and again that adaptation is the link between can't and can. Getting from can't to can takes willpower, and when people with diverse skills are on that page, the results can be glorious. At the Adaptive Design Association, we believe in building adaptations with love, from start to finish. While we carry liability insurance, our best policies are the interpersonal ones: to listen carefully, to include everyone, to build responsibly, and to share credit. No one works alone. In fact, most projects easily involve 10 or more people in everything from assessment through brainstorming and design to building and finishing. Each project starts with high expectations and a good question. For instance, how could Nando practice strumming a guitar without holding it? How can Max eat lunch with his classmates at a standard cafeteria table and not in his wheelchair at a separate table? How can Lynn open her mail if she can't grip a letter opener and the dentist told her to stop using her teeth? How can Jeff use Morse code instead of a keyboard to enter text in a computer? And how can Carrie learn to use a ruler in shop class if he doesn't yet understand fractions? These are real stories, and every day there are more, all important, many mind-boggling, and every one attitude-shifting. The impact is clear for the individual who finally can strum a guitar, sit with classmates, or enter text in computers. But the impact is also powerful for the parents, teachers, therapists, doctors, and countless others who recognize needs and request adaptations. And it can be profound for all of those who fire up the jigsaws, glue guns, and soldering irons and bring adaptations to life. The process of adaptive design changes everyone. Over the last few weeks, I've remembered hundreds of stories that I'd love to share, but in the interest of time, I'll tell you the two recurring themes. One theme is being believed in, and it threads through all the stories about children, custom adaptations, community engagement, and achievement. The other theme is not being believed in, and it threads through all the stories of low expectation, grief, and lasting disability. When you think of all the things you do well, it can be easy to look back and remember experiences and people who believed in and encouraged you. Conversely, if you think of the things you don't do well, it can be easy to recall a moment, a comment that led you to give up and repeat things like, "I am such a klutz," or "Believe me, I can't even draw a stick figure," or the most common of all, "I stink at math." Every one of us has a list of self-doubts. Some we express, but most we keep to ourselves. They corrode our willingness to risk new challenges, and they spill out when we assume limitations about other people. The World Bank estimates that 15% of the total population, or 1 billion people, have a disability, and life for the vast majority is difficult. In addition to struggling with stigma and isolation, very few people with disabilities can access the opportunities or adaptations they need to achieve more than a fraction of their academic, physical, social, or vocational potential. That is horrifying, and it has to stop. The subject of disability is challenging to navigate without placing blame or expressing doubt, but global social change depends on our willingness to accept our vulnerabilities and recognize that disability exists across all ages, races, incomes, religions, and cultures. It is a topic that matters everywhere, and it is a fact of life that unites us. My wish is that when we look at one another, we just assume great capacity and then elicit it through more care, creativity, and encouragement than ever before. You, the graduating class of 2017, can bring much needed fuel and new voices to this cause. Continue studying, keep stretching your minds, and set bold goals in your classrooms, workplaces, and communities. Imagine discovering untapped potential in other people and shout about it. Imagine healing shame and fear with trust, hope and commonality, and imagine not waiting for someone else to make it happen. Thank you.